big question, is it detuned in comparison to the KX450? Hey everybody, welcome to another video. It is video number 4 with the cast here. We are moving along, and as you're watching this, we have a little bit less than 2 weeks until I get this cast off and get a wrist brace on and hopefully start riding again soon. As you saw in the title and thumbnail, we are putting this 2021 KX450X on the dyno. The bike is bone stock, as you can see. It has the stock exhaust, and we are running the black DFI coupler, as you can see right here. So there's a couple reasons why I am putting the KX here on the dyno. One is because I want to get a good baseline for when I start to mod this thing. I want to be able to see if putting an aftermarket exhaust on will help out the power at all. And then 2, when the KX450X came out, people thought that the engine might be detuned compared to the regular KX450, and I kind of want to bust that myth there, see if it really is detuned at all. But apparently it is the same motor as the KX450, so when you look at it that way, there shouldn't be much of a difference. But then again, if there are any differences, it probably is in the tune. So without further ado, let's go ahead and load up the bike, get to the shop, and get this thing on the dyno. Okay, we're on the way to the dyno. Curious to see what kind of power the KX makes here. Leave a comment down below and guess how much power you think it's gonna make. But I'll see you guys when we get to the shop.
Pulling up, shut it down when I'm pulling up. Come around when I'm pulling up. In my town and I'm pulling up. Ready for anything, anyone. Know that I get it.
Just finished here. KX is in the distance over there. But check out this Talon turbo over here. We have a Jackson Racing kit on it, as you can see here. And I think this one is for sale. I don't know if I went with a side-by-side. I think it'd be tough. I'd like to go with Kawasaki, but this Talon with the dual clutch, it would be fun versus the belt. You don't have to worry about the belt temps and whatnot, belt slip. All right guys, we have made it back home from the dyno. And right behind me there, we have the numbers on the bike. One thing to note here, as you can see in the dyno runs, they had to put a street tire on the bike, which was kind of unexpected. Big chunk of change there just to change out the tire and get a baseline dyno at $130, but I guess, oh well, a knobby tire might not get a good reading on the dyno. But you see guys like Dirt Rider magazine and all that run the knobby on the dyno. Whatever, we got the numbers, but let's go ahead and see what we got. All right, here we are. Max power 50.21 horsepower, max torque 30.65. For you guys out there, we are using SA smoothing to a factor of 5. So let's go ahead and look at the graph here. Max power appears to happen at about 10,000 RPM, which is great. I believe the rev limiter is somewhere around 11,500 or 12. As you can see here, the power really doesn't drop off that much after it hits its peak horsepower. Give you guys a good look at that. In comparison, we have my built up KX351 graph here, and as you can see, it hits peak power and then it kind of drops off here. Although I will say that's probably due to a couple different things, which I'll save for another video. I think we need to be able to tune the ignition timing up top here so it doesn't drop off. That's what the dyno shop said, but another video, we'll talk about that later. But for comparison's sake, you can see the KLX, how much it drops off here, and then with the KX, it really just peaks and then kind of stays relatively flat for the scale that they're using here. It drops to maybe about 46, peak power is about 50, so that's all in all pretty good. You gotta love that 4-stroke power, doesn't drop off. Some 2-strokes from what I've seen, you know, they peak, of course, you're gonna feel that. That's why 2-strokes just feel so aggressive, but then you gotta keep on shifting, keeping it in the power band because they do drop off rather quickly up top. So like I said, this is a stock baseline run. We did it in 4th gear. Now let's talk about some of the other important things here. AFR, as you can see on the throttle tip in, we go a little bit rich, probably down to around 10.5, something like that. So that's not too bad considering it is all stock, but wow, I see why these things aren't street legal from the factory. Well, not necessarily why, but in comparison to a street bike, these things run really rich. Across the board, we're running about 11.5, I'd say, somewhere around there, and you can smell it when you start one of these things up. If you get to at the dealer, it's running pretty rich. So what does that tell me? Well, since it's running pretty rich, that tells me that if we put an aftermarket exhaust on here and open this thing up a little bit, pull that exhaust out of there, it's probably going to pick up some pretty good power just from an exhaust, not needing a tune. Without going into too much detail, 14.7 to 1 air to fuel is where all the air, all the oxygen gets burnt up completely. There's none left over for either. But generally, when people are tuning, they try to stick around that line there, 13 to 1, depending on the application. Of course, with cars, it might be different. If you're boosted, naturally aspirated, it's going to be different again. But 13 to 1 is kind of just like an average, if you want to think about it like that, if you're new to this. For this bike, and knowing how MX bikes run, I'd probably run it a little bit richer than that. I'd probably shoot for around 12.5 or a little bit below that 13 to 1 mark. So with an aftermarket exhaust, pulling some of that exhaust out of there more efficiently, we should pick up power pretty well. And that's great to see, because I bet if we slap an exhaust on there, we probably pick up a couple horsepower, maybe 52, 53. You tune it, you get that AFR dialed in, and we could very well get close to 60 wheel horsepower, which is absolutely insane on a dirt bike, especially coming from my souped up dual sport over here, which is making about 30 to 31. All right guys, so we talked about the numbers briefly real quick there. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the numbers as well. But the big question, is it detuned in comparison to the KX450? I really don't think it is. Power ramps in pretty linearly right here, as you can see. If anything, the MX bike might come in a bit harder, but I really don't think that's the case, because the DFI couplers probably affect that as well. We're running the black one, like I said in this video. 50.21 horsepower seems right about spot on with what the KX450s were making. I've seen numbers ranging from 51 horsepower all the way up to 55 horsepower stock. So there are a couple of factors that can affect that on the dyno. The running conditions really don't affect it as much, but things like the tire pressure, like I said, they had to change to a street tire. And then, like I said, other people might be running knobby tires on the dyno. Like I said, I'll go ahead and put the numbers up on the screen for you guys, where they talk about the numbers that other people have made. 51, I believe, 52, and then 55. But overall, hey, I'm pretty happy with the numbers. At the end of the day, the numbers really do not matter. It all boils down to the rider, how you're gonna put that power down, and honestly, just using the power in an effective way. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Probably a little short dyno run video, but I think pretty informative for some of you guys who had questions about the motor of the KX450X, if it's any different than the KX450. But one thing's for sure, Can't wait to get back on the bike and start ripping again. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video or found it useful. If you did, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Also, share it to your friends and those who may enjoy it. And of course, if you're not subscribed, go down there, hit that subscribe button. We are getting so close to 2,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for the support. Be sure to comment what you think about the power numbers of the KX450 here. But with all that being said, join the club, and I'll see you in the next one.
I'm the motherfucking greatest. Yeah, I'm the greatest. Bitch, my competition, they don't fit that niche. You can try to take a shot at me, I will not.